Thinking Aloud. Conversations on the leading edge of knowledge and discovery with psychologist Jeffrey Mishlove.
One of the principles of reincarnation, as I call them, is that people can have the same physical appearance from lifetime to lifetime.
Okay.
Now, Ian Stevenson in the beginning did not pick up on that.
Yeah.
In fact, the first time he wrote that physical appearance can be maintained from one lifetime to another was in 1997, almost 40 years after he started to do the research. And his first published cases with photographs showing physical resemblance didn't come out till 1999. And that wasn't even in his own book. It was a book written by Tom Schroeder, who traveled with Stevenson to study the cases.
A popular account of Stevenson's work.
And one of them that's very striking is the case of Suzanne Ghanem. And I'll just do it in story form, starting with the first lifetime.
All right.
So there was a woman named Hanan Mansour who was born in Lebanon in the mid-30s. She married a policeman. They had children. She developed heart valve problems, or some kind of heart problem, which I assume is a valve problem. And she was told by her physicians not to get pregnant again because her heart would not be able to tolerate it. But she did get pregnant, and after the pregnancy, she had to go to have surgery. And they couldn't do it in Lebanon, so she traveled to Virginia, where the surgery was done. She had a brother living in Virginia, and prior to surgery, she tried to call home, and in particular to call her daughter Layla. And she called multiple times but could not get through. The next day and she told her brother to divide, if something happens to me and I don't survive, divide my jewelry between my daughters. And she had surgery and then died the next day. Just 10 days later, Suzanne Ghanem was born. And before she learned to read or write, she scribbled some numbers on a piece of paper, and it turned out to be the Mansour's phone number with just 2 digits transposed.
I see.
When she was a toddler, she would pick the phone off the hook and ask for Layla, and she did this repeatedly. And her parents said, "Who's Layla? We don't know a Layla." And she goes, "That was my daughter." And they said, "What are you talking about?" And she said, "Well, ask me when my head is bigger, perhaps I'll tell you." and within a year, she named her own name, Hanan Mansour, the name of her husband, 13 relatives in all. She named the place where she lived and gave enough information that her parents could find the Mansour family. At first, the Mansours were very skeptical, but Suzanne was able to name all the relatives by name who she had never seen before. She knew about the jewelry being divided among her daughters. And her husband, Farouk, who's the policeman, who found it very hard to believe that this 5 or 6-year-old who's sitting on his lap being affectionate to him like they're still a married couple, was his deceased wife, but then he would show her pictures of them at parties. And little Suzanne could name their friends in the pictures, specific names. And he thought, how could she possibly know this? So they accepted that this little girl, Suzanne, is the reincarnation of Hanan.
Who was also born in Lebanon.
Yeah, these both in Lebanon. Not
so here we have a woman who died in Virginia and was apparently reborn in Lebanon.
Right.